Our first guest is Reshonda Tate, and we're going to be giving away her new book, The Queen of Sugar Hill. So, Reshonda, um, we welcome you to Black Authors Matter TV, and Rhonda's going to bring her on, and we'll be seeing her face shortly. That was a beautiful picture that you have as your still photo.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You put that glamour shot up there.
Yeah.
Hello, Reshonda. It's good to see you.
Hello, ladies.
Yeah, welcome back to the show. You're no
Thank you.
stranger to Black Authors Matter TV. And congratulations on the success of your book, The Queen of Sugar Hill.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah,
It
it's
came
keeping me
out
busy.
January 30th. I've been seeing you touring. I'm glad you
Yeah.
were able to carve out the time to come on the show today.
To talk
Yes.
a little, we appreciate that.
My pleasure.
You've been everywhere. Where are you now? Are you back home? Or you?
So I'm back home until Friday, and then I hit the road again.
Where are you going now?
I'm going to Oklahoma City, and then I have just a bunch of cities: Charlotte, Atlanta, Charleston. I'll be on the road for a minute.
Well, you know what? That's amazing, and that's a blessing. That as an author, you're in demand, and that you're able to go to so many places to promote the book and to share your story. This is something that authors have always dreamt of doing.
Yeah, and but here's the thing: they don't believe in touring authors anymore. And so when I got that news, I was like, okay, I'm touring myself, and I'll have to show you. And now they're stunned because they don't want to do it. They think people don't come out. And I said, if you have the right person, the right book, yes, did it all myself. I have a fabulous publicist at William Morrow, but she's only doing national stuff, national coverage. So I grabbed that local reins and did it all myself.
Well, I remember talking with you. I believe we mentioned this when I interviewed you at the National Black Book Festival, and you said that as much success as you've had in your career, in your writing career, you still hustle like you're self-published.
Yes, I do. I absolutely do.
Yeah, and it shows. I thought it was an amazing event that you had in Houston. Yeah, I think it was like the February 1st, if I'm not mistaken, where you had that big event with a personal librarian chat, had that huge event. That was beautiful, and I like the pictures of that. I'm part of that chat group, so most of the authors that they featured have either been on the show or scheduled. But that was a really nice event.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And so I'm gonna just give a little factoid. You may not even remember telling me this, and this has probably been 20 years ago when you told me this, because about when you first started, and you told the story of, and you were doing it in public, but you told the story about to create demand for your early book, you would call the bookstores and ask for your book to see, but not as yourself, as like a customer.
Right.
That is not a bad idea.
In the bookstore. I thought that was a strong hustle move right there.
Yeah, you can no longer do if you write it, they will come. You have to really think of how to get out there and get people to want to do this book. And so that's really what I was doing. I'm just trying to think of innovative, out of the box ways to do this.
Right.
I think that's amazing that you do that, because often we see a lot of times newer authors will feel like because they've written a book that everybody's just going to want to come to them. They don't have to get out there and hustle anymore. They don't have to go on certain podcasts anymore. They don't have to do this because they feel like, okay, I have written a book. I have made it. You should be fortunate to have me on your show. You should be fortunate to have me at your store. And that's not always the case. No,
it's not at all. I mean, this is a competitive game, and really you have to get out there and you have to tell people, why should you buy my book out of the thousands that are out there right now? And I think a lot of people don't get that. We depend on the publishers too much. Authors depend on the publishers. And when they tell me what they're going to do, then I'm going above and beyond. And I'm a seasoned author, but there's no way, even if they had sent me on a 10-city tour, I'm doing 10 more.
Exactly. Exactly. How many books
Right.
have you written?
So this is my 54th book.
54.
I'm
Yes.
pretty sure I was there for book number one. I'm
Yes, you
pretty
were.
sure
Yes, you
that
were.
I was. So, so I can say that I was, and that was really kudos for having a long career, making this a career, and just
Thank you.
a
Thank you so
one-off.
much.
You know, because a lot of people they write once, and I tell people, because I meet a lot of new authors. You know, DMing me, because of the book festival. And,
Mm-hmm.
they say, well, I wrote my book and I can't really it's not flying off the shelves, so to speak. And I say, hardly anybody sets the world on fire with their first
Right.
book,
Right.
unless they're already a celebrity.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
and that's just the reality. And people are
yeah.
like, well, my book is really good. Well, everybody thinks
Everybody says
it's
that.
really good.
And it may or may not be true. So, this is a departure in terms of genres for you, because I not think I know every book that you've written.
Yeah.
I haven't read them all, but I know them all just about. This is a departure in terms of being historical fiction
It
and
is. This is
also being about a real person.
Yes, this is my first time getting into this genre, and I love it. When I started doing it, I actually have been gotten tired of writing mainstream fiction, and I call myself going to retire because I lost the luster when you do the same thing over and over. I had 53 books, and I know people loved it, but you really do say, okay, I want something different. And then I decided here's an opportunity for me to merge the journalism side of me with the creative side of me, and so I could do that with historical fiction, and I absolutely love it. So this is where I will be.
How is
Oh,
this
so this
different
isn't going to be
from,
your first one. I mean, your only one.
No, not at
Okay.
all.
Okay.
I am actually on to working on the next one as we speak.
oh, that's awesome. Well, how is this different? Writing a historical fiction book, especially about a real person, how is this different from writing fiction, which is, how many of us came to know you?
Yeah, so it's very different because it's a lot of research involved. In fact, I researched this book for almost 3 years, and I was working and working, and one of my friends was like, "Okay, you need to stop researching and get to writing the book." But it really was, you get lost in all the research. So what I love about this is that I can lay the foundation, the facts. That's what the historical part of the book is. All of the things that I have in there that Hattie went through, those are the facts. The fiction comes in filling in the blanks. And so for me, it's a merging of both worlds, and I absolutely love it.
Now, what made you settle on Hattie McDaniel as your focus for the book?
I have always loved Hattie McDaniel. Well, no, let me change that. I have not always loved her. When I first was introduced to her, it was because my grandmother was watching Gone with the Wind. I hated it. And she asked me why didn't I like it. And I told her because Hattie McDaniel was a maid and she was playing this, over the top maid. And my grandmother said, she's playing a maid. I am a maid. And I've given you a great life by being a maid. So why do you look at it with disdain? And then she said, so what would you like her to play? Would you like her to play Scarlett O'Hara in 1939? And it was at
Right.
that point where I started looking at her differently. And I've just remained a fan of hers for several reasons all these years until I finally decided to write a book about it.
Oh.
What,
Now, did
what
you come up
surprised
with the
you most
title?
when you did your research? What surprised you most?
The amount of stuff that was incorrect. I was dumbfounded by that. The natural
Oh.
tendency is to go online and look everything up. And I was dumbfounded by all of the erroneous information. So I had to get offline and I went to research libraries. I spent time in California at the Huntington Library. I spent time in Howard University at their library, their research center. And then I went to census records. So I really had to dig in and not just rely on the internet because they have so much wrong.
Yeah, it is. And Wikipedia is not
No.
a reliable source for facts.
And that's why I was gonna ask, because you're right, the internet is not a reliable source. When I went through my doctoral program, they say don't depend on anything that was, in fact, anything that was .com was not even acceptable. We had to go to .org or .edu. But how did you know that something you were reading was incorrect?
So because what I would do is I actually would look for stuff on the internet. And because I want my book to be based in facts, that wasn't my sole place. So one example is Wikipedia, a bunch of articles, everybody talks about Hattie McDaniel's husband, George Langford, who died in a gambling, he was shot after gambling. So when I go and I try to confirm that in the census record, I can't find it anywhere. Long story short, Hattie McDaniel didn't have a husband named George Langford.
Wow.
Somebody wrote that story, and then somebody else repeated it, and somebody else repeated it. And scholars, real scholars, have even written it in their books about her. And it's not true.
So she didn't have a husband, or she didn't have a husband named George.
She didn't have a husband named George Langford.
And does she know George?
No, he doesn't even exist. What I believe happened is she had a husband named Nim Lanford, and I think along the way people just got him confused. I don't know where the gambling came from. She was married 4 times, but it was not to a man named George Langford.
Oh, okay. She's married 4 times. Wow. So where was she from?
She was from Wichita, Kansas. And then her family moved to Denver. They were extremely poor. And she just always wanted to entertain. A lot of people didn't know that she had this foundation beforehand, where she was the first blues singer ever on the radio, first Black woman to ever sing on the radio. She had made 26 records before anybody even knew who she was. And so people think that she came onto the scene with Gone with the Wind, but she was working. She was a working entertainer long before that.
Wow, I didn't know she sang at all, because she didn't sing and go. And I'm giving my trivia thing away, but whatever. But now that is new information. So did she sing anymore once she got into acting? Did she stay?
She didn't. She did. Like, they went on the road and she sang in some of the tours and stuff she was doing. But no, she got into acting, and that's really where her heart was.
Interesting. What did people get paid back then? Were you able to research that?
I did. And I include all of that. She was very well paid. And that's why she has a quote: "I'd rather play a maid for $700 than be a maid for $7." Because she was paid very well. So she's getting like $2,500 a week, which back then was humongous.
A fortune.
Yeah.
It's not bad now.
Yeah, I know, right? And so, yeah, she worked hard, and she was deserving of it all. But what I was surprised to find out was how many Black people hated her. So she walked this fine line between white people didn't like her because Mammy was too sassy. Black people didn't like her because she was perpetuating stereotypes in their opinion.
Mm-hmm. And, that still happens now, where Black people will despise a certain actor or actress because they think that they're perpetuating a stereotype.
Right. And Hattie McDaniel's thing was, I just want to work. This is all I can play. I would love to play Wonder Woman. I'd love to be Scarlett O'Hara, but it's 1939. This is the only role they'll give me. So what you're saying to me is you'd rather I just didn't work at all. And that really bothered her. And as she looked at people like Lucille Ball, she said, Lucille Ball is a silly comedian. And people watch her and they love her, and they don't make her an indictment of the whole Black race. Right. But for me, anything I do is an indictment of the whole Black race.
That is sad. And I think it's even sadder that this belief still goes on today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just because I'm not a fan of a certain type of comedy or a certain type of acting does not mean that I feel that the person's dragging the race down.
Right.
Yeah, we all make individual choices, and especially in the creative realm, we sometimes our interests are outside the norm. And really, in order to carve out a lane for yourself, you kind of have to be outside the norm. Otherwise, you're doing the copycat thing and trying to chase everybody else, and it gets too crowded like that.
Right.
So now, the Queen of Sugar Hill as the title, was that your title, the publisher's title?
It was mine from the very beginning, because Sugar Hill was the neighborhood that she moved into. And she bought a mansion. It used to be called the West Adams District in Los Angeles. And
Mhm.
she moved into this neighborhood, and her neighbors used a law called restrictive covenant to try and sue her and get her out. So the law basically says that you can't sell your home to anyone who is not of pure European blood.
Wow.
And so
That
they
was
took her to
fun.
court. They took her to court, and they sued all the Black residents, trying to kick them out. And Hattie McDaniel led the fight to take them to court. And she surprised everybody because she won. And then that case ended up being the catalyst for a case that went to the Supreme Court that they won. So really, Hattie McDaniel is the reason that we can live anywhere we want to live. And I was dumbfounded that we didn't know that. We've never been taught that.
Yeah,
Is
those
this
codes
the same
were
sugar-
common.
is
Yeah.
this the same Sugar Hill that was in the movie with oh my goodness.
Was that
So
New Jack
lessons
City?
in chemistry,
Well, no, this was a
a Black movie.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a Black movie that came out
Yeah,
years.
that's in New York. And this Sugar Hill is paid in
Okay.
homage to that one in New York.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So, after was she in other movies? I know she was, but name some of the other movies she was in.
So she actually has over 70 movies before Gone with the Wind.
Wow.
And
Oh.
before, most of them were unaccredited. After Gone with the Wind, she was in several movies, but they were never the movies she wanted. She had hoped that being in Gone with the Wind would open up doors to her to be in other roles. And the one time that she had a role that she thought would give her that, it was called In This Our Life with Bette Davis. And she was still a maid, but the focus was on her being a grieving mother. And in the end, they ended up cutting out the best scenes where she focused on being a grieving mother.
Oh, wow, wow. I've seen several Betty Davis movies. I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah.
Mhm. So, what you said she was married 4 times. Did
Mhm.
she have children? What was
She
her
did
first
not
husband?
have children at all. And there's a fascinating story about her and her desire to have children in the book that will just have people's mouth on the floor. But she desperately wanted children, but she does not have any.
So
Okay.
how did you choose with all of this research that you did? And it sounds like you learned so much about her.
Yeah.
First of all, this is an historical fiction book.
Hmm.
So first of all, how do you choose what goes into the book? And then how much is the book based on reality? How much of the book is based on reality?
So everything that she went through, all the foundation of the book, those are all facts. Those are things that I discovered. I'll give an example. She went after they won the Gone with the Wind. They won so many awards that night. The cast went to a nightclub, and they denied Hattie entrance into the nightclub. They denied everybody else. So we know that's a fact. The fiction comes in, and we don't know exactly what the bouncer said to her as to why she couldn't come in. So that's where I come in and fill in the blanks on what he said. So it's that
Okay.
type of thing.
So the
Okay, so you
dialogue,
text throughout the
Yes.
story, but you kind of filled in the blanks a little bit.
Yes. Right.
because
Right.
the dialogue you wouldn't be able to find dialogue.
Right. You wouldn't
So-
know what she said.
Right.
Yeah.
And how she felt
Right.
necessarily. I mean, you would have to describe her feelings and
Well, and so one of the ways I was able to get that is she wrote letters, and she would get upset at her coverage, and she would write these scathing letters. So that can tell me, I can take her feelings from that, and then I can use that as part of her dialogue, because we have this proof that she hated not being able to go in.
okay, wow, that's good. So I was looking at some of the comments, and most of the people are saying where they're viewing us from. Somebody's viewing us from St. Louis, and we have some of our regulars on. And so now, are you able to say what your next project is about, or you have to keep that under wraps until later?
No, so I'm currently working on this. I'm again going back to historical fiction, and it is a story of Hazel Scott. And Hazel was the biggest jazz singer of our time, Black or white, bigger than Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan. She was married to Adam Clayton Powell Jr., but people
Okay.
don't know about
Okay.
her because she spoke out against civil rights. And so they deemed her a communist and all but erased her from history.
Wow. I've heard that name, Hazel Scott. I
Yeah.
saw some. I've seen a couple of shows where Adam Clayton Powell was portrayed.
Hmm.
Godfather of Harlem is one of them.
Yes.
And but I had heard the name Hazel Scott. So would you consider Hattie McDaniel to be an activist, for lack of a better term?
So she was, but she was a quiet activist. And that's one of the things that I liked about her so much. People always, when you think activist, you think the power to the people, I'm going to be loud and proud. But she was a quiet activist who believed I can make a difference because I have a seat at the table. And a lot of people, wanted her to be vocal. And she said, Mammy and this vocal activist can't exist in the same world. And so what she did was made the choice to be in the room. So there are some things with Gone with the Wind. They were supposed to use the N-word in there. And there was some other things that because she had a seat in the table at the table, she was able to change. And so, yes, she was an activist in her own way. And people wanted her to be an activist the way they wanted her to be. But now that because she had money, she was able to help other young people out, bring other people along, do things that if she had chose to be loud and proud and speaking all of this against the system, she wouldn't have been able to do any of that.
In this day and age, she would never make it on social media like that.
Right.
Social media likes to celebrate the people who are loud and who are going against the grain or who are unapologetic. All of these buzzwords that we like to use on social media.
Right.
But you want the person to be loud and don't be afraid to call it out. And that wasn't who Hattie McDaniel was.
Right. Exactly.
Well, a lot of times people who there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
There's more that actually there's more that goes on behind the scenes than the loud and proud stuff as far as actually moving things forward. That was one thing I liked about Victoria's book about Mary McLeod Bethune, that he was doing things quietly.
Yes.
That I didn't even know about. I'd heard about it for years, but I didn't know the details. That was very helpful. Now, have there been any other books written about Hattie McDaniel, like biographies?
Yeah, so there are two biographies that were written. And that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Okay. I just wondered, has she been a subject of books? And
no
nonfiction,
fiction, no historical fiction, and no nonfiction. There was one person, Jill Watts, who did a deep dive into her life. But yeah.
Okay, now how's the one thing that you wrote on social media recently? Was somebody read the book and sent you an email or a comment that they wish you hadn't focused so much on the racism that Hattie McDaniel experienced, as if you can separate it from reality. What was she supposed to do? Not talk about it?
Yeah.
Hey, this was 1939. What else was she supposed to focus on?
I have reached so many white readers. In fact, in North Carolina, I had a woman come up to me, a very old white woman, and she said that she loved the book, and I gave her permission to let go of the guilt. So, when in 2020 and they had the whole cancel Gone with the Wind and everything, she started feeling guilty because she liked Mammy. And so she said it made her see it in a different light. And I'm a whole bunch of people. I'm in a Gone with the Wind Facebook group that I posted about, and that I was dumbfounded because it went viral. It had over 40,000 shares because that's how much these people love Hattie McDaniel. And one man in particular, he came in, he commented and said, "This is so stupid. Why would you not like Hattie McDaniel? Everybody likes it." And so I said, "You're entitled to your opinion, but I'm looking at it from a young girl looking at this on TV, a Black girl." And so when I broke it down to him like that, he said, "Oh, wow, I never even thought about it like that." So I love that it's opening some eyes.
That's awesome.
Now, did you join that Facebook group for a marketing tool? Or
yeah, I would. Well, let me be quiet.
That's brilliant. I might use it. I have to think about some groups to join based on some of my books. So what is the thing about writing historical fiction, now that you've changed genres,
Mhm.
that gives you the most uh, satisfaction. Let me
It's
say
really just shining a new light on Hattie McDaniel, because the number of people that are saying, wow, I had no idea, is just
that.
amazing. And so I love being able to shine that light.
Yeah, well, you know, I like the cover picture of the car going down the, you
Mhm.
know, it looks like a one of those roads that's leading to a wealthy area,
Yeah. Yep.
you know, in California. And so I think it's great that this information is getting out. I think it's great that you are the one bringing it out. And there's so many historical figures that are now getting the exposure because we have these great writers
Yeah.
that have really, you know, you and Victoria always are creating genres. You all, with Christian fiction 20 years ago, you all were early movers in
Mhm.
that. And now you're right in the midst of this new wave of historical
Yeah.
fiction books. So
Yeah.
that's wonderful and great. So,
I love
um,
it's a genre that continues to grow. I think people are really appreciating these stories and being able to learn about history in a different way. And
Right.
you don't feel like you're reading a textbook. You're just immersing yourself in a good story.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So we have the advanced reading copy of the book we're going to give away, and we use trivia to give the books away. The trivia that I had picked is so easy that it'll basically be a matter of who can type it in fastest. But
Yep.
Hattie McDaniel won an Oscar for her role in a particular film. Name the film, and if you're the first one, you get the copy of the book. So, Reshonda, thank you so much for being a
Thank you
guest
for
on
having
the
me.
show.
Yeah.
And we'll be seeing you in October at the book festival, at the National
Yes,
Black Book
ma'am. I'll be
Festival.
there. Thank you all so much. Have a good one.
Thank you. We did
Okay.
put the link in the chat. So everybody go out and buy this book. This is
Thank you
amazing.
so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Good night.